All right, let's just dive right in. For decades, the whole idea of living under the sea felt like something straight out of an old sci-fi novel. You know, a forgotten dream from a way more adventurous time. But what if I told you that dream isn't just back, it's being built as we speak? We're about to look at humanity's big return to the ocean floor.
And this quote right here from Kirk Crack at a company called Deep, it just nails it. This isn't about looking backwards. Nope. This is a super high-tech mission to reopen a frontier that we basically walked away from a long, long time ago.
Get this. It has been 40 years. An entire generation has gone by since we last put a new habitat on the ocean floor. So you've got to ask the big questions. Why now? And what on earth stopped us in the first place?
So the company that's really leading this new charge is DEP, and their prototype habitat is called Vanguard. The best way to think of it is like a super advanced underwater RV. It's this pressurized shelter where a crew of 4 can live and work for a week, maybe even longer, without ever having to come back to the surface. And it's on track to be the very first of its kind in the water since the 1980s.
Okay, so how does any of this even work? Well, it all comes down to this incredible science called saturation diving. Now, the really cool thing is, once a diver's body is fully saturated with the gases at a certain depth, it actually doesn't matter if they stay down there for 6 hours, 6 days, or even 6 months. The time it takes to decompress at the very end of the mission stays exactly the same.
And this is where the advantage just becomes huge. If you're diving from the surface down to 200 meters, you might get to work for, what, an hour? Then you have to spend over 6 hours decompressing. But from a habitat, an aquanaut can work a full 8-hour day with absolutely zero daily decompression. One researcher said it lets them do 7 years worth of science in just 30 days. I mean, that is a total game changer.
And here's why that matters so much. A whopping 90% of all the life in the ocean lives within that 200-meter depth zone, the absolute sweet spot for these new habitats. And the craziest part? We've only identified maybe 20% of it. We barely know what's down there. These habitats are literally the key to unlocking the secrets of the vast, vast majority of life in our own oceans.
But to really get where we're going, we have to look at where we've been. So let's rewind the clock, back to the 1960s, a time when the race to the bottom of the ocean was every bit as exciting and just as dangerous as the race to the moon. This was the first great age of the aquanaut.
I mean, you had absolute legends in the field. Jacques Cousteau in France with his Conshelf habitats, the US Navy going all in with their SEALAB program. The buzz was so intense that astronaut Scott Carpenter, one of the most famous people on the planet at the time, literally traded his spacesuit for a wetsuit to go check out this new frontier. And this timeline, this just shows you everything. You see this flurry of activity in the 60s, which kind of culminates with the Aquarius habitat being installed in 1987. And then, nothing. Just this huge empty gap until Deep's plan for Vanguard. For all those decades, Aquarius has been the world's one and only undersea research station still in operation.
So what happened, right? Why did this whole field, this incredible parallel to the space race, just fizzle out?
Well, it was really a perfect storm of things. The space race, let's be honest, it won the battle for everyone's imagination. And more importantly, it got all the government funding. Then in 1969, the tragic death of aquanaut Barry Cannon during the SEALAB 3 project was a brutal reminder of just how dangerous this all was. And finally, you had the rise of cheaper, safer, remote-controlled robots, or ROVs, which made it seem like we just didn't need to send people down there anymore.
Okay, so that was the past. But that brings us right back to today, because now, brand new technology is making it possible to smash through all those old challenges, and honestly, to dream even bigger than they did back then. So what's the secret sauce? It's basically a fancy way of 3D printing with metal. You have these huge robotic arms that build up the habitat's hull layer by layer, fusing them together with a welding torch. This lets you create these incredibly strong, complex, and modular designs that were just completely impossible back in the 60s. And remember, Vanguard is just the test model. Deep's endgame is a system they call Sentinel. So stop thinking of a single lab and start thinking more like an underwater international space station. It's designed to be totally modular, deployable anywhere on the planet, and completely self-sufficient with its own renewable power and even its own waste treatment. Now, for any gamers watching, this is pretty awesome. The problems that Deep's engineers are solving are straight out of the video game Subnautica, but as it turns out, reality is even harder. For example, to stop divers from getting nitrogen narcosis at 200 meters, the air they breathe is 98% helium. But helium is a really weird gas. It pulls heat away from your body so fast that you have to warm the air to over 30 degrees Celsius just so you don't freeze. Plus, it can actually seep into normal electronics and completely destroy them.
So all this incredible technology, all this hard work, it leads us to the most important question of all. Why? Why go through all this trouble? What is the ultimate goal here?
It's all about one thing: having a permanent human presence in the ocean. Getting our eyes down there for good. This would let scientists study climate change as it's happening, in real time. It would let us finally understand that 80% of ocean life we know almost nothing about. And it would let us establish a real, lasting foothold in the last and largest frontier, right here on our own planet.
And the level of ambition we're talking about, it's just staggering. People are calling this project the SpaceX of the ocean. Get this, one of the board members at Deep talked about a vision for having a community of 130 people living on the seabed by the year 2035. That's not a research lab anymore. That's a colony.
And that really leaves us with a fascinating thought, doesn't it? We've mapped our continents, we've walked on the moon, we're planning to go to Mars. But what if the next great leap for humanity isn't out there, but down here? Is the ocean floor our next permanent home?